He would insist on a kilt, and though I checked the weather forecast and did my best to warn him, he wouldn't be swerved. His lineage was Scottish, I'd heard on more than one occasion, when it suited chiefly, when he'd had a drink. So the aunt remarrying at 60 in the Glens, inviting us up for the full shebang, gave him full rein. Honey to a bee when he got the nod through the post. I said, it's my side of the family, you know. You're a +1, and it was pure coincidence Marion met Hamish at the docks, and he had a few bob, and she was lonely, so don't get carried away. But he couldn't help himself. He said, did I know the history of the sporran? He only knew because he'd looked it up. He'd Wikipedia'd his clan. He'd gone back generations, and somehow always knew I was Rob Roy in my bowels. And if I pointed out once it said smart apparel, dress suits on the card, plain as Aberdeenshire architecture, he said, when he roamed do as the Romans do, despite the fact we were talking about Stenhouse Muir. The musculature south of his knees, I'd noticed him for when Garola on our 5-star all-inclusive, and it had, what's the word, withdrawal, streamlined. He wasn't quite the 100% British beef of the 90s, with maturity gone somewhat lean. Scrawny's what I'm searching for. Harsh but accurate way to phrase what would not dangle loosely over Lilo with a cocktail to entice a girl half his age. She would just say, get your toenails cut. Wool socks, garters, a ceremonial sword, a sprig of heather on a blazer, his corsage. Bless the Lord he didn't know how to play the bagpipes. In the car going up, I asked Sir Walter Scott, is it necessary to wear the full rig-out hours before the 12 o'clock service? He was getting used to it, his answer. It helped, apparently, the ease with which he changed gearbox. He needn't adjust his crotch, could reach across and put it into fourth, and with the other hand unwrap a cough sweet. It fostered the sense he was barbarian. In my pastel, my hatpin's not in, so we reached the church. The wind gusted us as we went through Dumfries and Galloway. It was nearing Christmas, and I felt for his little legs, not literally. The wispy hairs down there that wouldn't capture air, and shield his goosebumps that were likening to golf balls, or offer riposte to the wind. His fur not coarse undergrowth, or furze, or sedge. His legs as pale as pints of milk, with the odd weed growing, curled, and moving in the blast of the air conditioning. I said that he'd been sensible with underwear. It was December. That was as far as I probed. I didn't want to broach the subject, overstep, since he had said it was the front to tradition. Would Braveheart go to Damart for long johns? Course not. It would have looked ridiculous. Being home-drawn and quartered too, I expect. And white shows blood and egg, as my mam said. But I only thought it. Disagreement left me months back, and I took it that no thin material besmirched his strides, and no linen cupped his vulnerable thighs under rat coarse line of tartan pattern. Naked as a day he was, his budgie inside, and I'm sure shivering for dear life. Well, I got stuck into my sweets. What would you do as a wife in this situation? There is no guidebook to approach the delicate question, and I mean, what good's a cry if it won't knock a man off whack? You got the sniffles? I am allergic to your aftershave. Giving it the big un. I thought of rugby players, ceremonial guards, phalanx of marchers in the Queen's regiment, brutes of Scottish heritage, and in their silhouette could see the point of kilts. But him beside me with no bum and a 32-inch inside leg, waistline hovering at 36 for most of our married cohabitation, with not the Hebridean hulk. I never saw him toss a caber. He just got things into his head, and stubborner as he got older, used his superpower lots, and so no reason to change. I prayed a named storm might assuage this trait once and for all, blow him up from the legs like an umbrella, when the bride walked in, and everyone from then on in, be cognizant with all he owns, Mr. Wee Willie Winky. My little chipolata and his roasties would need me then, wouldn't they? While the rest of the assembled shunned him through the speeches and the cake, my parsnip would be cooked and kept sat down and do no Highland jig. And if there was a ceilidh, forget it. He'd be embarrassed to get up and go to the toilet for the looks. He'd just sit there with legs crossed. Aunt Mariam in time may forgive, as Hamish, But every subsequent Christmas, without fail, I'd be doing a ho-ho-ho to my guts, because a memory of his faux passes, not Santa Claus's visits. He'll be the gift that keeps on giving. Nothing to write home about to relatives, of course, from Stenhousemuir. Everything went wonderfully, all this we say. But I'll quietly line the dog's bed with the fabric he made, use off-cuts for dusters, port a bit under the occasional table's wobbly leg. And we won't hear a word from Robert de Bruce in the sitting room on the subject. Not when extended family, friends, a minister of the Presbyterian Church had seen him in truth for what he really was, the full English. As the organ struck up and the bagpipes pumped, august, aghast, all seeing the worst, memories fresh in the dining room for the wedding breakfast afterwards, and for 6 months running on our retinas burned. Swooning over the beauty of the landscape outside, glad that we were served neeps and tatties and haggises, not sausages, and thanking the Lord the first dance was Blue Eyes by Elton John, not Yes We Have No Bananas.